Jai Gurudev, today we have with us two distinguished guests, an officer from Vedic Dharma Sansthan and an expert from the art of living to explore a pivotal moment from the Ramayana, the departure of Lord Ram for his 14-year exile and his interaction with Sumantra, the royal charioteer. Let's start by setting the scene. Can you describe the emotional weight of this moment where Ram leaves for the forest and Sumantra bids him farewell? Jai Gurudev, this is one of the most profound moments in the Ramayana. Ram's exile was not just a personal sacrifice, it was an act that exemplified the dharma, the moral duty of an individual in a royal position. As the eldest son of King Dashrath, Ram was supposed to ascend the throne, but his father's promise to Queen Kekai, which led to Ram's exile, showcases the complexities of dharma. Sumantra, as a royal charioteer, was more than just a servant. He was a close confidant and a representative of the kingdom's loyalty to Ram. His role here is deeply emotional. He is torn between his duty to the king and his love for Ram. His act of driving Ram to the forest symbolizes a moment of profound separation, and we see both a duty and personal grief that weigh heavily on him. Absolutely, there is a spiritual depth to Sumantra's actions. Sumantra is not just a physical guide to the forest, he is the emotional and spiritual guide at this moment. He is embodying the teachings of detachment. His sorrow in having to see Ram, his beloved prince, go into exile is a reflection of human attachment. But Sumantra, like the true devotee, understands that Ram's exile is a fulfillment of cosmic order, and thus he bears it with grace. The tears shed by Sumantra are not out of rebellion, but out of devotion, understanding that this journey of hardship is part of a higher purpose. That's an interesting perspective, but Sumantra seems unable to hold back his sorrow, pleading with Lord Ram to return to the palace. He even asked Ram to consider the kingdom, his subjects, and his father. How do you both interpret Sumantra's actions in this context? Sumantra's pleading is not out of selfishness, but from his deep sense of duty. He knows that Ram's presence in the kingdom would be for the greater good. In his mind, Ram, as the ideal king, would bring prosperity and justice. This moment speaks to the value of leadership in the Vedic tradition. Sumantra is caught between personal attachment and his realization of the larger role Ram has to play in the world. Even as he implores Ram, his understanding of Dharma prevents him from stopping Ram. There is a sacred tension here, the royal duty and the righteous duty to follow through with the father's vow. From a spiritual perspective, Sumantra's plea is an act of surrender to a higher cosmic order. Lord Ram, as the ideal man or Maryada Purushottam, must follow the path set by destiny, even though it is painful. Sumantra's sorrow is a reflection of the human condition, the desire to hold on to resist change, but in the end, the separation is a necessary process for Ram's growth and for the kingdom's ultimate benefit. The art of living teaches us to practice equanimity in the face of hardship, much like Sumantra, who continues to serve Ram despite the pain of separation. That's very insightful. But there is also a spiritual layer here. Lord Ram himself, despite his own sorrow, accepts its fate with equanimity. His response to Sumantra is calm and full of wisdom. What can we learn from Ram's attitude here, especially in the face of such personal sacrifice? Ram's response is a lesson in resilience and duty. Ram never wavers from his path. He understands that life is a series of sacrifices, and his willingness to accept his exile is a demonstration of his unwavering commitment to Dharma. What is remarkable here is that despite the pain of leaving his kingdom and family, Ram does not allow his emotions to cloud his higher purpose. He chooses to embrace the path laid before him with humility. This is a quintessential characteristic of Dharma, acting in accordance with the greater good, even when it requires personal suffering. Ram's response is indeed profound. His acceptance of hardship without resentment teaches us the importance of surrendering to the flow of light in life. In the art of living, we emphasize the practice of mindfulness and detachment. Ram exemplifies this by maintaining clarity of purpose. Even in the face of adversity, he shows that true freedom lies in accepting what comes without attachment to the outcome. By doing so, he becomes the ideal of a yogi who remains balanced even in difficult circumstances. This moment of acceptance by Ram is an invitation for all of us to trust the divine order and surrender our personal attachments to it. It seems that both the personal and cosmic dimensions of both this moment intertwine beautifully. Sumantra's grief, Ram's calm acceptance, and the unfolding of the greater divine plan all reflect deep spiritual truths. What final thoughts can you both share on the broader significance of this conversation in Ram's journey? The departure to the forest is not just a physical journey for Ram, it is a spiritual and transformative one. This moment marks the beginning of Ram's deeper understanding of his role in the world. Sumantra's grief and Ram's calmness show us that emotions and duties are not opposing forces, but they must be understood and balanced. This is a key lesson in Dharma. Our human nature will always evoke emotions, but true strength lies in aligning our actions with the greater cosmic purpose, just as Ramses does. Exactly from a spiritual standpoint, this conversation is a powerful reminder that life will present challenges, but our response to those challenges is what defines us. Ram's ability to remain calm, detached, yet compassionate sets a perfect example for all of us in the face of trials. We too must act with wisdom, understanding, and a sense of higher purpose. Sumantra's pain, although deep, is also a form of devotion and love, showing that even in difficult times we can grow spiritually. The departure to the forest is not just about a physical journey, but also about a journey inward. Thank you both for your rich insights. This conversation between Sumantra and Lord Ram will continue to inspire generations, reminding us of the delicate balance between duty, devotion, emotion, and spiritual growth. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev. Today we have two esteemed guests, an officer from the Vedic Dharma Sansthan and an expert from the art of living, to delve deeper into the conversation between Sumantra, the royal charioteer, and Lord Ram as he sets off for his 14-year exile. This moment is laden with both emotional and spiritual significance. Let's begin by discussing the emotional gravity of Sumantra's interaction with Lord Ram when Ram leaves for the forest, and how would you both interpret Sumantra's grief? The grief of Sumantra is deeply symbolic. As a royal charioteer, he has been by Ram's side for many years, seeing him grow into the ideal prince. But now the unimaginable has occurred. Ram must leave the kingdom he is meant to rule, all because of a vow made by his father. For Sumantra, this is more than just a personal loss. It is a loss of the ideal future, a loss of dharma being fulfilled in the kingdom. Sumantra's grief shows his deep attachment to Rama, but also his awareness of the larger dharma at play. While he pleads with Ram to return, his devotion is rooted in the belief that Ram, as king, is the best person for the kingdom. Yet he understands that Ram's exile is part of the divine plan. Yes, and Sumantra's grief can be understood through the lens of human attachment. Sumantra represents the natural emotional response of any devoted servant or friend who is faced with separation from someone they love deeply. But his role also teaches us an important lesson about detachment. He is a witness to Ram's unwavering commitment to Dharma. Although Sumantra is emotionally torn, he knows that Ram is not simply a prince, but the embodiment of divine will. This understanding helps him accept his duty. Despite his sorrow, it's a powerful reminder that the real and the ideal response to emotional hardship is not to resist or avoid it, but to allow it to flow through you without letting it cloud your deeper understanding of the situation. That's very insightful. The emotional weight of Sumantra's plea is intense, yet Lord Ram responds with clarity and calm. How do you interpret Ram's response? He seems detached, but also full of wisdom. What does this tell us about his inner strength? Lord Ram's response to Sumantra is a profound example of how one should handle both personal loss and duty. While Sumantra is pleading with him to return to the kingdom, Ram, although undoubtedly feeling sorrowful about leaving his family and his kingdom, does not let emotion cloud his judgment. His response is rooted in a higher understanding of Dharma. He knows that he must fulfill his father's promise to Queen Kekai, no matter the personal cost. Ram's calmness here is a reflection of his ability to distinguish between personal desire and cosmic duty. This wisdom to choose the greater good over temporary comfort is the essence of Dharma. Ram's response is a remarkable example of spiritual strength. It reflects the ability to maintain equanimity in the face of adversity, a key teaching in the art of living philosophy. Ram demonstrates the principles of Sankalpa, a firm resolve to fulfill one's purpose in life, regardless of external challenges. His detachment is not apathy, but an awareness that his actions are part of a greater divine plan. In spiritual terms, this detachment allows Ram to move beyond the emotional turmoil that would otherwise ensnare him. He remains true to his higher self and purpose. This is a crucial lesson for all of us. In moments of crisis, we are often called to stay aligned with our higher values rather than being swept away by the emotional currents of the moment. That's an interesting point about Sankalpa. Ram's calmness and decision to proceed with his exile are also deeply rooted in the commitment to Dharma. How can we in our daily lives integrate this aspect of Ram's character into our own actions, especially when facing difficult decisions. Ram's commitment to Dharma, even in the most difficult circumstances, teaches us the importance of adhering to our values and responsibilities, even when they require personal sacrifice. This is something we can all integrate into our lives, whether it is honoring a promise, fulfilling our responsibilities, or standing by our principles. We must learn to act in alignment with Dharma. Just as Ram does when faced with decisions, we should ask ourselves what is the right thing to do, what aligns with the greater good, even if it is challenging. Ram's example shows that upholding righteousness, even at a personal cost, is the true path of wisdom. Exactly, one of the core teachings of Art of Living is the practice of mindfulness and equanimity, which helps us stay aligned with our purpose no matter the external situation. Ram's ability to remain steadfast in his decision, even when faced with personal loss, is something we can aspire to in our own lives. We may face difficulties and situations where we need to make difficult decisions, whether it's in relationships, work, or even our spiritual journey. By practicing mindfulness and staying connected to our inner wisdom, we can make choices that align with our values and dharma. Ram shows us that when we stay true to our path, even the most challenging situations become opportunities for growth and fulfillment. As Sumantra escorts Lord Ram into the forest, he is not only performing a physical duty but also helping Ram navigate a deeper spiritual journey. How do you view this symbolic aspect of their relationship? What is the significance of Sumantra's role as a charioteer in this moment? Sumantra's role is not merely that of a charioteer, but a guide to Ram's spiritual journey. The chariot is symbolic of the vehicle of the soul, taking the soul from one phase of life to another. Sumantra, as the driver, helps Ram transition from the comforts of the kingdom to the hardships of the forest, symbolizing the journey of life itself. It is in the forest that Ram will confront his true purpose, shedding his royal identity and embracing his role as a divine being who must fulfill his larger duty. Sumantra's support during this transition shows the importance of guidance and mentorship on one's spiritual path. He may be filled with sorrow, but his presence in is a form uh, of silent support for Ram as he embarks on this transformative journey. Yes, and in many ways, Sumantra's guidance mirrors the role of a spiritual teacher and a friend in one's life. A true guide helps you navigate through difficult times, even when they are unable to remove the challenges you face. Sumantra, despite his deep sorrow, continues to support Ram because he understands that his journey is essential for Ram's spiritual evolution. His role emphasizes the importance of spiritual companionship during times of crisis. It is not about taking away the hardship, but about supporting each other through it, helping one another stay true to the path, as Sumantra does with Rama. This conversation between Sumantra and Ram is truly multifaceted. It is a blend of deep emotional attachment, spiritual insight, and the embodiment of Dharma. As we conclude, what final thoughts would you like to share on the broader significance of this moment in Ram's journey? The moment represents the intersection of human emotions with divine purpose. Sumantra's grief and Ram's calm acceptance show us that life is full of trials and challenges, but our response to them defines our spiritual path. Ram's decision to accept his exile is not a moment of defeat. Rather, it is a moment of immense spiritual growth. It is through such trials that we evolve just as Ram does. It is a moment of immense spiritual growth. It is through such trials that we evolve just as Ram does. The Ramayana teaches us that following Dharma, even when it requires sacrifice, is the ultimate path of self realization. Absolutely. This moment also highlights the transformative power of detachment. While attachment to our loved ones and desires is natural, detachment allows us to experience life without being overwhelmed by it. Ram shows us that by aligning with our higher purpose, we can face any challenge with grace and resilience. The ultimate message of this story is that the path of Dharma, though often difficult, leads to true peace and fulfillment. Thank you both for your deep insights. The conversation between Sumantra and Lord Ram is indeed a timeless lesson in the balance of duty, emotion, and spiritual growth. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev, we are fortunate today to have with us two esteemed guests, an officer from the Vedic Dharma Sansthan and an expert from the Art of Living, to discuss one of the most poignant moments in the Ramayana. This is when Lord Ram leaves for his 14-year exile and his royal charioteer Sumantra accompanies him. Let's begin with the emotional weight of this moment. Hannah, how do you interpret Sumantra's grief and sorrow as he escorts Lord Ram into the forest. Jagrave, the grief of Sumantra at this moment is deeply symbolic and reflects the human attachment to the world. He is not just a royal charioteer, he is someone who has spent years serving Lord Ram and has seen Ram as the ideal prince, the one who would be the protector of the kingdom. Now he is witnessing the beginning of a journey that will take Ram away from the royal comforts of his people for 14 long years. Sumantra's grief Sumantra's grief represents the emotional response of any person who is deeply attached to someone they love. It also shows the personal sacrifice involved in following the will of Dharma, even when it goes against one's own desires. Sumantra's grief is very much rooted in attachment to Ram as the prince and the future king of Ayodhya. But his role in this scene is also a profound spiritual lesson. As an enlightened charioteer, Sumantra is not just as a servant, he is also a spiritual companion. His sorrow comes from the fact that he will no longer be able to serve Ram in the same way. Yet there is a deeper understanding within him. He recognizes that Ram's exile is a part of the divine plan, that his duty to the kingdom, to his father's promise, is leading him down a path that is necessary for the greater good. Sumantra's emotional plea to Ram, asking him to return and consider his father the kingdom and his people, makes this moment even more poignant. Why does Sumantra express this sorrow? It is simply emotional attachment, or does it also reflect his deep understanding of the consequences for the kingdom? Sumantra's plea is rooted in both attachment and a sense of duty. On one hand, he is deeply attached to Ram. On the other hand, he is also aware of the kingdom's need for Ram as a ruler. Sumantra knows that Ram is the ideal king and his absence will bring great suffering. This conflict between personal love and the duty to the kingdom is a recurring theme in the Dharma. He wants Ram to stay, not just for himself, but for the good of the kingdom, which will be in turmoil without Ram's leadership. His plea is not selfish, but it is born out of a desire to see the kingdom flourish and for Ram to fulfill his destiny as a ruler. That's true, but if we look at Sumantra's sorrow through a spiritual lens, his plea also reflects his understanding that sometimes we must let go of what we love most in order for the greater good to unfold. He is trapped between the attachment to his beloved prince and his awareness that Ram's exile is part of a higher cosmic order. It reminds us that as we face our own challenges in life, we must often let go of things we hold dear, understanding that this is part of a larger divine plan. The heart of Sumantra's grief then is the recognition of the bigger picture, even though it brings him sorrow. Ram's response to Sumantra is calm, resolute, and full of wisdom. He assures Sumantra that he must fulfill his father's vow. How can we understand Ram's attitude in this moment, particularly in relation to this inner strength and spiritual clarity? Ram's response is a demonstration of his adherence to Dharma, even when it requires great personal sacrifice for Ram. Following his father's vow is non negotiable. It is the path of righteousness, and his inner strength lies in his unwavering commitment to this path. He knows that personal sorrow and hardships are part of life, but they should not deviate him from his duty. Ram's clarity comes from his understanding of his divine purpose. He recognizes that the fulfillment of Dharma is the ultimate goal, even if it means sacrificing his own happiness and royal comfort. This shows us that true strength lies not in avoiding challenges, but in accepting and walking through them with a steady heart. Exactly, Ram's response shows us the importance of resolve or sankalpa. He is firmly committed to his purpose, and this inner resolve is what gives him the strength to face his exile with grace. In the Art of Living teachings, we emphasize staying aligned with our higher purpose, no matter what life brings. Ram's calmness in the face of his personal loss is a perfect example of the spiritual strength. He does not let his emotions dictate his actions. Instead, he remains focused on the greater good, and this focus on dharma, on truth and duty, becomes his guiding light. Ram's calmness contrasts sharply with the Sumantra's emotional outpouring. but both responses are integral to the story. What do we learn from this dynamic between Sumantra and Ram, and how does it reflect the balance between emotions and spiritual wisdom? The dynamic between Sumantra and Ram is essential for understanding the complexity of dharma. While Sumantra's grief is natural and human, Ram's calmness represents the ideal way to respond to difficult situations by rising above personal emotions and focusing on the greater good. This contrast is symbolic of the human condition. We all face moments where our emotions are strong and the pull of personal desires is hard to resist. But Ram shows us that spiritual wisdom lies in recognizing that these emotions, though valid, must not guide our actions. This balance is in acknowledging our emotions but acting with clarity, wisdom, and purpose as Ram does. This interplay between emotion and wisdom is something we all experience. Sumantra represents the part of us that reacts emotionally, while Ram represents the higher self that knows how to remain steady and calm even in the face of adversity. The lesson here is that while emotions are part of our human experience, they should not control us. By cultivating inner wisdom, we can navigate through life's challenges with grace, much like Ram does. As Sumantra escorts Lord Ram on his journey to the forest, his role goes beyond that of a physical charioteer. What is the spiritual significance of Sumantra's position in this story, and what can we learn from his action? Sumantra's role as a charioteer is deeply symbolic. The chariot represents the body, and the charioteer is the guiding force, whether it's the mind, a spiritual teacher, or in this case, the divine will. Sumantra's role is not only to drive Ram physically, but also to guide him spiritually, even though he is deeply pained by the separation. His role highlights the importance of guidance and support in life's journey. Whether we are faced with difficult choices or undergoing transformation, having the right guidance is crucial to staying on course. Absolutely, Sumantra's role symbolizes a spiritual guide who helps us on our journey. Even when they may not fully understand the divine plan, they continue to serve us with love, support, and encouragement. Even when the path is unclear for Ram, Sumantra's presence during this difficult transition is a reminder that spiritual companions help us navigate life's challenges. Their role is to encourage us to stay true to our higher purpose, just as Sumantra encourages Ram to stay true to his. To conclude, what final thoughts would you share about the broader significance of this moment, both spiritually and philosophically? This moment of separation between Ram and Sumantra represents the journey of the soul through life's trials. It teaches us that life is filled with challenges, but the key is to remain focused on dharma and the greater good, even when it involves personal sacrifice. Ram's unwavering commitment to his duty shows us that true strength lies in following the path of righteousness, no matter the obstacles. From a spiritual standpoint, this moment teaches us the power of detachment and inner resolve. Where life will inevitably present us with moments of difficulty, but like Ram, we must remain focused on our purpose. By surrendering to the flow of life, we gain the strength to face hardships with equanimity. Sumantra's devotion and Ram's wisdom together illustrate the beauty of spiritual companionship and the power of dharma in guiding us toward our highest potential. Thank you both for your thoughtful insights. The journey of Ram and Sumantra continues to inspire us to walk the path of dharma, resilience, and wisdom. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev, thank you both for joining us today. In this interview, we will delve into the one of the most poignant conversations in the Ramayana, the conversation between Sumantra, the royal charioteer, and Ram as Ram leaves for his 14-year exile. To start, let's discuss the emotional context of this conversation and what is the significance of Sumantra's grief as he watches Ram embark on this journey. Sumantra's grief is a powerful reflection of the human heart's attachment to what it loves. He is not only Ram's charioteer but also a close confidant, having witnessed Ram's growth and leadership in Ayodhya. His sorrow is not just for Ram but for the kingdom itself, knowing that Ram, the ideal ruler, is living in the Vedic tradition. This moment symbolizes the emotional turbulence we often experience when a duty calls us away from what we love most. Sumantra's tears represent the natural human attachment to one's family, kingdom, and friends. It highlights the human struggle when faced with the reality that following dharma often comes with personal sacrifice. Exactly, Sumantra's emotional reaction mirrors what many of us go through in moments of separation and loss. In the Art of Living teachings, we understand that grief is a part of the human experience, but it must not cloud a perception of the greater spiritual truth. Sumantra's grief is rooted in his attachment, yet it is also a reflection of his deep love and devotion to Ram. But at the same time, his internal struggle becomes a teaching moment. Grief, when understood deeply, can also lead to transformation if we are able to detach ourselves from the moment and understand that life moves according to a larger plan. Yes, the attachment and grief are indeed relatable. Sumantra pleads with Lord Ram to return, asking him to consider his father's state and the kingdom's future. How should we interpret Ram's response in this context? Ram's response to Sumantra is one of firm resolve and spiritual clarity. His answer is steeped in the understanding of dharma, the cosmic law that governs all actions. Ram explains that while he understands Sumantra's sorrow, his duty to his father's promise is paramount for Ram. Fulfilling his father's vow takes precedence over the personal desires or the comfort of staying in the kingdom. His response is not one of cold indifference, but rather one rooted in the wisdom that higher principles such as truth, duty, and respect for promises should guide one's actions, even when it means a great personal sacrifice. In the Vedic tradition, we learn that duty, dharma, often requires one to act in ways that may be challenging emotionally, but it is through these challenges that we grow spiritually. Rams's response also illustrates the importance of spiritual clarity. In the Art of Living teachings, we emphasize the idea of sankalpa, a firm, unwavering resolve. Rams's detachment from the immediate sorrow and his focus on his father's vow is an embodiment of that spiritual discipline. While Sumantra is overwhelmed by emotion, Ram shows the path of inner strength, which comes from understanding one's deeper purpose and aligning with it. For Ram, it is not just about obeying his father, it's about adhering to a higher cosmic order. This detachment from personal feelings enables Ram to fulfill his duty with a sense of peace no matter how difficult the journey may be. In this conversation, Ram remains resolute, while Sumantra's emotional attachment seems almost unyielding. What can we learn from this dynamic, especially in terms of how we handle difficult situations in our own lives? The dynamic between Ram and Sumantra highlights the importance of balancing emotional attachment with spiritual wisdom. Sumantra's emotional outpouring is human and natural, but Ram's unwavering commitment to dharma teaches us how to rise above the turbulence of emotions. Ram's strength lies in his ability to be detached from the personal pain of the situation and focus instead on fulfilling his larger purpose in our own lives. We are often faced with decisions that may cause us emotional pain, such as fulfilling duties that are uncomfortable or challenging. The lesson here is that emotional attachment can cloud our judgment, but if we anchor ourselves in dharma, in our higher purpose, we can face even the most difficult choices with clarity and strength. Sumantra's emotions and Ramsa's wisdom can also be seen as a reminder of how life is about both emotional processing and spiritual understanding. In the Art of Living, we teach people to acknowledge and honor their emotions, but we also teach them not to be controlled by them. Emotions can be valuable signals, but they should not be the driving force in making decisions. Ram shows us the importance of aligning our actions with our highest principles rather than allowing transient feelings to dictate our course. When we connect with a deeper spiritual understanding, we can navigate life's challenges without being overwhelmed by them. Ram's calmness is remarkable, especially when he is asked to leave the kingdom for the forest. How does his attitude reflect his spiritual maturity and dharma? Ram's attitude reflects spiritual maturity in its highest form. His decision to leave for exile is based on his deep understanding of dharma and the roles he must play in the divine narrative. For Rama, the dharma is not simply about duty to his family or the kingdom, but to the universal order. He understands that his actions must align with a higher purpose, even when those actions bring personal loss. In the Vedic tradition, we are taught that dharma is eternal and it transcends our personal attachments or desires. Ram's ability to act without resistance is a reflection of this higher spiritual awareness. He is not governed by the transient world but by the timeless laws of dharma. Absolutely, spiritual maturity is about understanding that our individual roles and actions contribute to a larger cosmic balance. Ram's decision is not just about personal sacrifice, it is about understanding the impact of his actions on the universe. His willingness to face hardship without resistance is a hallmark of a true spiritual strength. In the Art of Living, we often speak about the importance of surrendering to the flow of life and understanding that we are all part of something much greater than ourselves. Ram embodies this as surrender to dharma, accepting whatever comes his way with grace. As Sumantra escorts Lord Ram to the forest, there is a sense that he is guiding not only Ram's body but also his soul. How do we interpret the symbolic nature of Sumantra's role in Ram's journey? Sumantra's role as a charioteer is deeply symbolic. The chariot represents the body, and the charioteer in this case represents the guidance that helps us steer the soul towards its ultimate purpose. Sumantra is not just escorting Ram physically, but he is also symbolically aiding in the transition from the kingdom to the forest, a transition from material life to spiritual realization. In many ways, Sumantra represents the external support and guidance we need on our spiritual journey. Whether through a teacher, a mentor, or a friend, we are all guided by external forces that help us navigate difficult paths. Even when Sumantra feels sorrow, he continues to help Ram fulfill his destiny, showing us that guidance can come even in the most challenging of times. In the art of living philosophy, this aspect of guidance is critical. Just as Sumantra helps Ram navigate his external journey, spiritual guides help us navigate our inner journey. Life's challenges, much like Ram's exile, are inevitable, but the presence of a guide or a mentor can make the process easier. Sumantra's unwavering dedication to Ram, despite the emotional difficulty, shows us the importance of maintaining support and compassion even when things seem difficult. A true guide helps us stay on course even when the path is unclear, and this is a beautiful metaphor for the spiritual journey we all undertake. As we wrap up, what do you think is the broader spiritual message from this interaction, both for those living today and for the generations that will come? The spiritual message is timeless. Life is full of challenges, but we must remain committed to our dharma, our higher purpose. The journey may be fraught with sorrow, but through understanding, detachment, and devotion to a greater cause, we can transcend the pain and emerge stronger. Ram's journey teaches us that duty to the divine, to our promises, and to the greater good is what will lead us to fulfillment even in the face of hardship. This message is about balance, balancing our emotions with wisdom, attachment with detachment, and our personal desires with the universal flow of life. Ram's unwavering commitment to dharma shows us that a true happiness comes from alignment with our higher self. When we embrace this deeper truth, we face life's challenges with grace and strength, knowing that we are all part of a larger divine plan. Thank you both for these profound insights. We are all reminded that life's journey, just like Lord Ram's, requires both emotional resilience and spiritual wisdom to navigate successfully. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev, today we are honored to be joined by an officer from the Vedic Dharma Sansthan and an expert from the art of living to discuss one of the most emotionally charged moments in the Ramayana when Lord Ram leaves for his 14-year exile and his charioteer Sumantra accompanies him. This event has a profound spiritual and emotional significance. To begin, let's dive into the emotional context of the conversation between Sumantra and Lord Ram, and what do we learn from Sumantra's reaction to Ram's exile. Sumantra's sorrow is a natural human response. As a devoted servant of the royal family, he had witnessed Ram's ideal qualities and virtues. He was not only a prince but a protector of dharma and a symbol of righteousness. His departure represents a profound loss not just to Sumantra personally but to the kingdom at large. In the Vedic tradition, this moment captures the depth of attachment we experience to those we love and the grief that arises when we must let them go. Sumantra's emotional response is relatable. It reflects the universal experience of loss, a moment where duty conflicts with personal attachment. However, it is also a teaching moment in how we handle grief and loss. While it is natural to grieve, spiritual wisdom teaches us that even such deep sorrow must be channeled towards a higher understanding. Sumantra's attachment is valid, but through his emotional intensity, we learn that even in our attachment, we must also recognize the larger forces at play, the forces of dharma, of duty, and divine will. Absolutely. From the art of living perspective, Sumantra's grief reflects the part of us that is deeply connected to the material world and the people we hold dear. However, the deeper layer of this moment speaks to the importance of moving beyond attachment and developing a higher perspective. Sumantra's emotional attachment to Ram, though understandable, ultimately serves as an opportunity for spiritual growth. In Art of Living, we talk about the process of turning pain into wisdom. This is what Sumantra does throughout this conversation. Even though initially he is overwhelmed by grief, his sorrow, if understood deeply, can become a powerful lesson in detachment and in learning to accept the impermanence of the world. That's very insightful. Sumantra's plea to Ram is heartfelt. He asks Ram to reconsider, emphasizing the impact on his father, King Dashrath, and the kingdom. Why do you think Sumantra is so insistent, even as he understands the larger implications of Ram's exile? Sumantra's insistence reflects his deep love and loyalty to Ram as well as his concern for the kingdom. He sees Ram as the ideal ruler, the one who brings prosperity, righteousness, and stability for him. Ram's departure represents an enormous loss, not just emotionally, but politically. This is not just about personal sorrow, but about the well being of the entire nation. In the Vedic tradition, this demonstrates the internal conflict we often face when our duty to those we love clashes with our understanding of the larger purpose at play. Sumantra's emotional plea is driven by his desire to protect both Lord Ram and the kingdom, to preserve the ideal order of things as he understands it. Yet his plea also symbolizes the human tendency to seek what is comfortable and familiar. The idea of Ram's departure and the possible hardships that will follow feels like an unraveling of the natural order, but Ram, with his unwavering commitment to Dharma, remains detached from these concerns, knowing that his departure is necessary for the cosmic balance. Sumantra's plea to Ram also highlights something very important: the difficulty in letting go of attachment to people, places, and outcomes. From a spiritual standpoint, attachment to the material world often leads to suffering because we are constantly trying to control or hold on to things that are impermanent. Sumantra's insistence is a reflection of this very struggle. His attachment to Rama and to the kingdom represents the attachment we all have to the outcomes of our lives in the art of living. We teach the importance of surrendering, the need for control, and trusting that life is unfolding as it should, even when it seems difficult. Sumantra, in his plea, demonstrates the tension between wanting things to happen and remain as they are and the need to embrace change, something we all relate into in our personal lives. Ram's response to Sumantra is one of calm assurance. He explains that he must leave to fulfill his father's vow. What we can learn from Ram's perspective here? How does his response reflect his spiritual wisdom? Ram's response is a clear demonstration of the highest form of dharma. His calm assurance reflects a spiritual wisdom that comes from a deep understanding of one's divine purpose. For Ram, it is not about personal loss or gain, it is about fulfilling his father's vow, which is part of the divine plan. In the Vedic tradition, this commitment to dharma is of paramount importance. Ram's decision reflects his dedication to the higher principle of truth and duty, even when it involves significant personal sacrifice. This is the essence of satya or truth, and dharma or righteousness, doing what is right even when it is not easy or comfortable. Ram's calmness in the face of his own exile is a lesson for all of us. True spiritual maturity lies in the ability to act with wisdom and clarity even in difficult circumstances. Yes, Ram's response is also a powerful example of Sankalpa, a firm resolution rooted in a higher purpose. In the art of living philosophy, we emphasize the importance of commitment to one's values and the strength that comes from this inner resolve. Ram's detachment from his personal desires and his focus on his duty, no matter the emotional or physical cost, exemplifies spiritual maturity. He is not swayed by external circumstances or by his own emotions. Instead, he remains steadfast in fulfilling his role in the larger divine order. This is a beautiful teaching on the power of resolve and how spiritual wisdom can help us navigate life's most challenging moments. We also see Sumantra's emotional turmoil and Ram's calmness contrasted in this exchange. What spiritual lesson can we derive from this contrast? The contrast between Sumantra and Ram reflects the journey of spiritual evolution that we all undergo. Sumantra, caught in his attachment, represents the ordinary human response to loss and separation. His emotions are raw and unfiltered, and he is struggling to accept the path that Ram must take. Ram, on the other hand, embodies the ideal of spiritual equanimity. His calmness comes from his unshakable commitment to dharma and his understanding of the cosmic order. This contrast teaches us that while it is natural to experience strong emotions, true spiritual maturity lies in the ability to remain centered and focused on the higher purpose, even when life challenges us with difficult situations. The lesson is about balancing our emotional responses with spiritual wisdom and always striving to rise above personal suffering for the sake of a greater good. Exactly, Ram's calmness serves as a mirror for us. While it is natural to experience grief and loss, we are encouraged to cultivate a deeper understanding of life's impermanence. In the art of living, we teach that this emotional turbulence, when processed properly, can lead to spiritual awakening. Ram, by embodying the detachment, shows us that we can navigate our emotions without letting them control us. The key is to recognize that our higher purpose and dharma will always guide us through the most challenging moments in life, just as Ram's purpose guided him through his exile. As Sumantra escorts Ram to the forest, it is clear that his role is not just that of a physical charioteer. What is the deeper spiritual significance of his role in this moment? Sumantra's role as a charioteer goes beyond the physical act of driving the chariot. In the Ramayana, the chariot symbolizes the body, and the charioteer represents the mind and the guiding force. Sumantra's task is not only to take Ram to the forest, but also to symbolically support him on his spiritual journey. The journey to the forest represents a transition from material comfort to a life of spiritual discipline. In the Vedic tradition, the charioteer is often seen as a guide who helps steer the soul towards the ultimate purpose. Even though Sumantra is emotionally burdened, his guidance is necessary for Ram's journey. His role represents the spiritual support we all need during difficult transitions in our lives. Yes, in the Art of Living philosophy, this aspect of guidance is essential. We all need spiritual companions, mentors, or guides to help us navigate life's journey, especially when we are faced with uncertainty. Sumantra's role is not just that of a servant, but of a spiritual guide, even when he himself is suffering. This shows us that sometimes we may find ourselves in a position where we are helping others even while we are in the midst of our own pain. This speaks to the idea of service and the importance of staying committed to our duties even when things are tough. Sumantra represents a supportive role that guides others even when faced with personal challenges. Thank you both for your profound insights. It seems that Sumantra and Rama's conversation offers us a timeless spiritual lesson in balancing emotional attachment, duty, and wisdom in the face of life's trials. Jai Gurudev.